Hey guys, this is Fergal from Poker VIP. We are back for part 3 of our beginner's guide to cash game poker over on Betsafe Poker. So we are just going to be continuing directly on from parts 1 and 2. So we still are at the same tables. We have our stack sizes built up, so hopefully we'll get into some interesting spots now that we're getting a little bit deeper stacked. And we're just going to be playing the exact same process. We're going to be talking through 3 tables of cash game poker. I'm going to be talking you through my thought process as each and every situation arises, and hopefully giving you some insights as to how to go about beating these games and building up a bankroll if that is your aspiration to do. So as I said, we're playing over on Betsafe Poker. So if you want to get signed up to this website, you can do so through Poker VIP. You'll be entitled to, you'll get 30% rate back through the site itself, and they will also give you a match deposit bonus up to €1,000. As you can see, if you've watched parts 1 and 2, the overall standard of playing these games is not particularly high, so they're definitely very beatable games. So if you want to get involved in that, make sure to do so through the Poker VIP links. And if you'd also like to read a little bit more about my thoughts about beating these games, you can get involved over on the forums on Poker VIP, where I'm an active member as well. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the action. So as I said, same format as before. We have our 3 tables, and we are just going to be playing the live play video. Hopefully we'll run into some interesting spots. So we're going to go ahead with the 3-bet here with the ace and the 3 of the same suit. Let's see what our opponent wants to do. So he's tanking. I assume he is probably going to tank fold. As I said, kind of touched off this in previous videos. People do tend to fold when they decide to tank. This guy decides to 4-bet us after tanking, which I find kind of suspicious. He did 4-bet fold to us before in the last video. We're going to go ahead and rip this with our ace blocker here. Oops. We get called by ace-9. Well, that is a light call down. We have a lot of equity here. Whoops. So here was my thinking there. When he went into the tank and decided to 4-bet, it just did not seem like he was going to be nutted there. And I mean, calling off with ace-9 seems pretty atrocious to me. Obviously, he was correct, so I can't fault him, but we'll take that. So the session gets off to a fun start. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend doing that as a standard line very often. It was just a timing tell, coupled with the fact that he had 4-bet folded us in a previous situation, led me to think that he might have been doing that a little bit light. Now, we were correct, but unfortunately, we weren't correct in our assumption that he would be folding that kind of hand. But obviously we flopped very well with the flush draw, and then we picked up the runner straight to go along with it, so we're not going to complain. Very popular adage in poker is better lucky than good, and in this case it is certainly correct. So we make a misstep, but we get there, we get lucky, and we're not going to complain too much about that. We wouldn't complain if we had gotten unlucky and lost as well, so, these things are going to happen in poker. You have to be able to take the bad with the good, so people have a tendency to only remember the bad beats they suffer at the hands of online poker. So that guy, for example, is going to be, very, very angry about losing ace-9 versus ace-tray, and he's going to be all sorts of upset, where in actual reality, he probably didn't play the hand overly well, but, he's going to get very lucky in those kinds of spots as well. So for example, if we had a hand like ace-king there and he got us in, sometimes he's going to win there as well. It's just the nature of the game. There's always going to be swings and roundabouts, so my best advice would be not to let the variance side of things bother you. We're going to bet here with our ace-jack for a little bit of value. And we just chop it up versus ace-jack as well. Seems perfectly reasonable line for our villain to take there. But anyway, going back to my point there, as I was saying, if you are just beginning out in poker, you really do need to accept the fact that, variance is a huge part of the game. There is going to be a lot of situations where you get your money in good and you get unlucky and you lose, and similarly, like you just saw, there's going to be situations where you get your money in bad and you win. So it all comes in swings and roundabouts and balances out. Once you're making those correct decisions as the games progress, then you are going to be just fine. And obviously play games that you are bankrolled to play as well, of course. So we're going to be bumping up our pocket 10s here. We don't get to see a flop, unfortunately. We definitely wouldn't have minded some action there with our 10s. The ace-8, we are going to be doing that folding thing. I'm still perplexed as to that guy calling off with ace-9. That seems thin. But it will be noted, so obviously my 4-bets will be I'll open up my 4-bets in certain ways against him, but tighten them up in others. So like ace-3, for example, is never, or sorry, like in those kinds of spots again, I'm not going to be jamming hands like ace-3, but I will be jamming, like ace-queen, ace-jack, those kinds of hands that I might not necessarily be jamming in those spots again. But if he's capable of making those kind of call downs, we may be able to amend our 5-bet jamming range in those kinds of ways. So over in the top left table, we pick up the toppest of the pairs with a very good kicker to go along with it in a multi-way pot. We were going to fire a bet ourselves. We're just going to call when this guy donks them. Like, this isn't a hand that we're really going to be thrilled about playing for stacks or anything like that, so I think I prefer a kind of pot controlling line. Now, the jack isn't particularly good. It brings, obviously, an overcard, which is one thing, but hands like 8-9 get there, which is a little bit upsetting as well. This guy fired doubles barrel. I think we're just going to let this one go. It's a little bit weak, but I mean, in general, he's dunked out in a multi-way pot and he's followed through on the turn after getting called. I mean, he should have a pretty strong hand pretty frequently there, so I think just letting that one go is going to be absolutely fine. We have a seat free over on one of our tables, so hopefully somebody fills that soon. We obviously prefer playing 6-handed. One of our players is sitting out as well, so at the moment we're actually only 4-handed, so hopefully the seat gets filled pretty quickly. I assume it will. There we go. So this is a hand that I would often use as a 3-bet bluff, but versus this guy who we've just gotten into that situation with, obviously a lot of the metagame comes into play here at the regular tables. Our 3-bets are not going to be working as well against him anymore, so we're just going to let that one go. I think he's going to be 4-betting us and floating in position an absolute ton after seeing that ace-3 5-bet jam. So we are going to have to change our playing style on that table, especially versus that particular player. We're going to flat call here. We're nice and deep with the suited connectors, so we're going to go ahead and see a flop if we can. So Ingvar decides to stick around as well, which we are definitely happy with. Hands like 4 or 5 suited are much better played in multi-way pots rather than in heads-up pots. Because what you're really hoping for with those kinds of hands is to flop quite strongly. So by quite strongly, I mean, open-ended straight draws, flush draws, combo draws, or straights or flushes, those kinds of hands. Or, 2-pair hands aren't really what you're looking for. You're obviously good, but the suited connectors, the real strength of them comes with the kind of straight and flush potential. So obviously you're not going to hit those kinds of hands very, very often. So when you do, you want as many people in the pot as possible to maximize the chances that you will get paid, basically, is the general theory behind that. The king 5 we're going to fold. We would have picked up an open-ender if we had decided to float. Obviously that would have been exceptionally optimistic with the 4 or 5 suited. It would have been pretty damn optimistic. And with the ace-king, we are just going to be going ahead and putting in a pretty standard 3-bet ourselves. So we're going to be making it 46 cent. This guy decides to call. Not the worst of flops for us. Obviously there's no ace or king, but we still have a decent amount of showdown with this kind of hand. So we're not necessarily just in check fold mode. After he checks back the flop, we are certainly calling. If he follows through with the river bet, we're probably going to give it up. But he decides to check back, and we are indeed good. We accept his money graciously. So the rationale behind the call on the turn there was that when we do check to him, I would assume that he's going to be betting a decent number of his Jack X as well. And I mean, his pocket pairs, like pocket 9s and 10s, I don't know if they're going to be betting on the turn anyway themselves. So a lot of his range didn't really make much sense there. So that was why I decided to make the call down. And Ace King, obviously, it is the nut no pair hand. So it does actually have a surprisingly large amount of showdown value on the right boards, of course, when it is unimproved. The king 4 is just going to be a fold. The 8-6 suit, we are going to let this one go as well. We could consider opening that up, but I think we'd be opening it from the cutoff of the button. But I think from mid position, we are better off just letting this one go. So obviously, the later in position that you are, the more hands that you're able to open, which is why I'm talking about hands where, you know, I'd open them from this position or this position, let's say, but I wouldn't be opening them from here or here. The general premise is that the closer you are to the button, the more hands that you're able to play, because A, you have less players behind to act, so you've got a higher chance if you are stealing, and B, you are more likely to be in position the closer to the button you get post-flop, which is a very, very profitable situation to be in Hold'em. You want to play as many pots in position as you possibly can, because that is where all of your monies come from. Not all, but, you know, a hefty chunk, shall we say. So we have King 10 suited. It's going to be a very, very standard open on the button, and we are going to defend versus the cut-off raise ourselves. We could consider 3-betting here, but I think flat calling is perfectly reasonable as well. We don't have much going for us here. We have some backdoor potential, that is about it, but when our opponent has checked to us, hopefully he's just planning on check folding, so we are going to fire. We're going to fire on a decent number of turns as well if checked to again. Purely because that is what we'd be doing with our Jack X, and if our opponent can't beat a Jack, he may not fold to a flop bet, but our chances of getting through with the bet on the turn are a bit higher. So as I said, we're going to fire through again here. We do pick up a gut shot, which is quite nice. So if we do get called and we somehow manage to bink a queen, that'll be very, very nice. He does call. We're not going to be firing 3 streets here. I mean, nothing has really changed in this board, so if he's called 2 streets, he's almost certainly calling a third, so we're just going to give this one up. So he has the Jack himself. I mean, that line definitely makes sense with a hand like Queen Jack, and fair play, he maximised our opportunity to bluff, so I think he played that hand quite well. We possibly, as I mentioned earlier on, we possibly should have 3-bet that hand pre. This is a very, very good flop for us, obviously. We are not allowing this gentleman to get away with this min bet, so we are going to put in a raise ourselves. Hopefully we can play for stacks versus this guy. He does call, which is something. The 5 is terrible because A, he's going to have some straights now, and B, it's going to be much harder to get paid. That's my biggest issue with this 5 rolling off. The board pairing isn't wonderful either. I mean, sometimes we are beat to full houses, occasionally, but we're still all in here. I don't think there's anything else to do but just jam. We're going to be opening up the Ace-Jack suited, ISOing the limper. So this guy goes to heads and folds. Like as I said, if that 5 hadn't rolled off, I think there's a decent chance that we actually stacked that guy there, but unfortunately it did. Never fun. Possibly we should have gone a little bit smaller rather than aiming for his entire stack, but I mean, generally speaking, I prefer just go playing for stacks there. Seems a little bit better to me. I'm going to start betting on the bottom left table now that we've picked up our gut shot. The reason that we're betting here is to try to fold out hands that are an underpair to the 10s, essentially. So hands like pocket 2s, pocket 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s. Those kinds of hands that are going to struggle to call a bet on that turn. And hands that, well, we still have a decent amount of equity against them if we do get called by them. And we also do just have the best hand with Ace-Jack, so we protect our hand a little bit from getting drawn out on by kind of random sort of Queen-Jack hands, those kinds of things that have open-enders, or just kind of 2 random suited connectors that are under the 10 as well. They still have some equity against us, they still have 6 outs to improve, so getting them to fold wasn't necessarily our target there, but it's you know, it's a consideration for sure. The Ace-9 from under the gun, we are going to go ahead and fold. Generally speaking, from under the gun, we open Ace-10 and above, and all suited Ace-X. And depending on the table, we may incorporate some weaker Ace-X as well, if we want to expand our ranges a little bit. The 10 and the 6 of the same suit, we are going to just fold to the under the gun open. So that is not going to be a profitable hand. Ace-Jack on the button, we're obviously going to be playing. If Dram had opened himself, we likely would have 3-bet it, and when it's folded to us, it's a perfectly standard open ourselves. We're going to defend here with the king and the 10. Again, this is a spot where I don't really mind a 3-bet and I don't mind a call. We can go either way. I'm happy enough just to call. My general kind of thoughts on these sorts of spots are, because we have position and we're closing the action, I'm more likely to call with these type of hands. If we weren't closing the action, or if we were out of position, I'd be much more inclined to use them as 3-bet bluffs. We flop second pair, perfectly reasonable. It's going to be hard to get 3 streets of value, so again, we're going to start this off with a check. See if we can get him to start bluffing at turns, and we can start betting for value ourselves now, and it's checked again to us. So he does just check fold. Again, it doesn't shock me by any stretch, but I felt it was worthwhile putting in the bet. And we have an ace, and we just get the walk, of course. Not what we wanted, obviously. King 10, this guy has just decided to rip it in for 20 something bigs, so like 28 bigs or something like that. We're just going to go ahead and fold. We're going to go out on a limb and say he is probably not a particularly good player. And we're going to be opening up the ace-jack suited versus the big blind here from the small. So that guy just jammed and has sat out. We are down to 5-handed at this table. I kind of like this guy Kairos to lose his money soon. Like a player like that, he's essentially drawing dead in the game. It's just a case of who's going to take his money. And having a short stack like this does change the dynamics. It's much better for them to lose their money quicker and to be replaced by full stacks rather than to kind of continue changing the game dynamics by keeping the short stack in the game. So over on the bottom left table, we have a gut shot with no backdoors. We're probably just going to check this one back. We're 3-way. I mean, this board should have connected reasonably well with their ranges, so I think we're just going to check back and just try to realize our equity. Obviously not all that likely that we're going to bink, but we're going to try. Oh, I thought we were 3-handed here, are we not? Maybe we're not. I thought we were 3-handed. Heads up there, that might have changed my thought process there. Sorry, this guy's just sitting out full stop. My mistake. My mistake. I mean, it doesn't change tons. I would have been more inclined to bet if I had known it was heads up, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be like an amazingly good bet or anything like that. I just would have been more inclined to do so. So we're not that upset about the missed opportunity, that is for sure. So Araben over in the top left table calls. Looks like we're going to see a multi-way flop here with our diamonds. We flop a flush draw, which is quite cool. I'm going to start this off with a bet. In multi-way pots, people tend to play super straightforwardly, so their honesty is going to be over-exaggerated here. They're less likely to, it's almost impossible for them to bluff raises here. And we take it down without a fight, which is fine by us. We wouldn't have hated a call with so much equity and so many outs to the stone cold nuts. But taking it down pre-flop is a fine result as well. Or sorry, taking it down on the flop, should I say. Pocket trays here, we're just going to check this. No set, no bet. And hopefully it checks through and we somehow bink a tray. We do not. If it's checked us again, do we want to start bluffing here? I don't really think we do. I mean, it wouldn't be absurd. I think just checking is going to be fine. And, I mean, we actually have showdown value now. I mean, there's obviously a lot of hands that beat us, but we are indeed good. We'll take that. We will take it. King 8, because it's a min raise, we are going to defend. We could consider using it as a 3-bet bluff, but it's probably a little bit too weak for that. But I mean, calling, getting like 4-1 or 3.5, 4-1 on our money is going to be perfectly reasonable. Sorry, pardon me. We have been playing poker for quite some time today. We're just going to check down our king high and be good, apparently. How do you not bluff when you just don't have it? When you like, I just don't understand who people don't bluff there when they've been checked to 3 times when they cannot beat a king high. Like, I could understand like hands like ace high checking down that have some showdown value, even some king high hands themselves, but like if you just can't beat anything, just take a stab at it. I mean, worst case scenario, you lose like a big blind. Best case scenario, you win a couple of big blinds. It seems like a very decent risk-reward ratio. Now, obviously, it's not going to make a huge difference to your overall win rate, but those little pots, they do add up. So, you know, while it might not have been a massive mathematical mistake financially, in the long run, because those situations arise quite frequently, it will make an overall difference if you're not attacking spots like that. Let's open up the ace tray from the cutoff. We get 3-bet from the button. We're just going to go ahead and fold. We can't really do much with ace tray there, although we could consider 4-bet jamming like we did earlier on and just get there. But that was a very, very different situation. Versus an under the gun open, we're just going to let the 9-jack suited go. If positions were changed and a couple of people had folded, we could consider calling or even 3-betting as a bluff. But first an under the gun open, when there's so many people left behind us to act, I think I prefer just folding. The only upside to calling here is that it incurs the possibility of multi-way action. So a few other people might decide to call because it looks like it's going to go to a multi-way flop. But as I said, I still don't think it's going to be profitable. We can't, like, we've talked about this a lot, about ISOing this guy, but he's at a sort of stack depth now where it's kind of hard to ISO him this wide. We are going to call and see a flop, but because if we raise and he calls, he's got a fairly decent percentage of his stacking in the middle. This guy decides to min raise, which is kind of annoying. Obviously, we just call and see a flop. Flop an open ender, which is quite good. We're probably going to be seeing a turn, almost certainly. This guy bets 14 into 23. We are going to check call. We pick up a flush draw. It's only a 7-high flush draw, but it's not meaningless. The only downside is, obviously he can have some made flushes that are just ahead of us already. What I'm actually going to do is, when he bets this size, I'm going to go for a sneaky little check raise here, because I think it's kind of hard for him to have a very strong hand here when he chooses this sizing. So we're going to see if we can get him to fold. All of his hands are better than us right now, obviously. So we do indeed. We accept that graciously. So it was really just his sizing there that did it for me. When he bet that small, it just seemed like he was trying to either see a cheap river with the marginal hand or to bluff cheaply. So we didn't allow him to do either, and we got the fold through with the 9-high, which is always nice. So not a very, very good flop for the pocket tens. This guy only has a euro behind, though. It's kind of a really, really awkward flop for us with the stack depths. When he pots it, we're just going to fold. For the record, I don't like that sizing with any of his range, really. He can bet smaller and then jam turns, which accomplishes the same thing if he's bluffing. And he can, and it maximizes his fold equity if he has value as well. So, it's not like he's going to struggle to get his last euro in the middle with smaller bet sizes, so going pot there makes no sense to me. Tray 5 on the button. If it was suited, we'd consider opening it, but offsuit variety, we are just going to fold. And the 4-7 in the big blind, obviously we're just going to be folding too. But we are not folding the ace and the king. Going to stick in a 3-bet here. This is the player that we had the interesting dynamic with earlier on. Hopefully he just thinks we're making a move. Obviously the positions are a lot different now, so he's less likely to think that from an under the gun +1 3-bet, but we shall see. We are going to have to stack off if he re-raises us, which normally I'm not a huge fan of getting hands like ace king offsuit in pre, but versus a guy that we got it in with ace 9 earlier on, where I don't think we can ever consider folding it. We get cold 4-bet, which is very interesting. I don't like any of our options, really. I don't like folding. I don't like flat calling in a cold 4-bet pot. I don't love jamming. I think jamming is my favorite out of all of them, so let's just go ahead and do that, as much as I don't like doing it. He has the aces. We're not shocked to see that. We are not shocked to see that at all. We don't have the diamond redraw, so as I said, it's just one of those coolers. We're not going to worry too much about it, though. We're going to end up in the positive side of those things as well. So, comes and swings and roundabouts. You can't be too upset about those kinds of spots where you're kind of just destined to lose some money. As I said, I wasn't happy about any of our options there. So jamming was the best of a bad bunch, I think. it's something I need to get a bit of a handle on, how these players, like what kind of hands they're cold for betting. In that spot, maybe folding is actually just better there. I know it sounds a little bit nitty, but like, I mean, it was an under the gun raise. It was an under the gun +1 re-raise. I know we've been quite active at this table. We don't know how perceptive this guy is though, so he might not even realize that. So, but I mean, all he sees is an under the gun raise, under the gun +1 re-raise, and then he decides to cold four, which really does ooze a lot of strength. So it is entirely possible that he is only doing that with hands like aces and kings, in which case getting ace king in is obviously going to be a disaster. So it's entirely possible folding may have been our best option there. But, as I said, I'm not going to feel bad about getting the ace-king in either pre. It's just one of those things that is worth considering. Like, hands like ace-king aren't always hands that you just want to be, you know, immediately stacking pre. The 4-5 we are not going to be doing much with. The 4-9 we are also not going to be doing much with. There's been an open here already, we're going to have to fold. Hopefully we just get a walk in the top right table, that would be ideal, obviously. We do, oh we do, nice. We accept. The king and the jack, we are going to be playing this in a lot of different situations. We are going to ISO Kairos in this, with this kind of hand. Because it has hands like 9-7 suited will ISO full stack limpers quite frivolously with those kinds of hands. But what we're looking for when somebody has this kind of stack size is to really just focus on hands that can flop strong top pair, hands that we can get the money in comfortably with. Or he'll just limp fold again. So a player like this is essentially just drawing dead in this game. So, I mean, there's just no way he can win long term. It's like physically impossible because of the strategy he's deciding to implement, where he's just limping tons and limp folding a lot. And when he does limp call, he's folding a lot of flops that he hasn't connected with. What you really need to be doing to beat these games is to be aggressive, to not limp, as I said. I mean, when you raise, you have the chance of just taking in the blinds without a fight, which is, you know, not what you want when you have a very strong hand, obviously, but it's not a terrible result either. But more importantly, like, you know, you're setting yourself up for more maneuverability post flop. You can kind of put your opponents in much more awkward situations when you have the betting initiative, and especially if you have position with the betting initiative, it's a very powerful combination. People will really struggle to counteract that. So I mean, if you've got a range advantage, the betting initiative and position, it's just impossible to beat you basically. To beat you long term. I mean, obviously on a hand by hand basis, you can of course get lucky, but it makes such a difference. Whereas if you're playing a very passive game, it's going to be extremely difficult to get paid when you do have a decent hand, and B, you're just going to be giving away so many chips. So it is not a winning strategy, kids. I would highly recommend against it. I'm going to be folding the 7 and the tray. The Queen 5 we are not going to be raising on the button either. If it was suited, we consider it, but offsuit it is extremely trashy as opposed to the suited variety, which is only moderately trashy. But again, just going back to our point that you want to be playing as many buttons as possible. So I mean, we want to have as wide a range as we possibly can on the button, and most suited queens would fit within that range. Queen deuce and queen tray suited we would probably be folding, but queen 4 suited is around the kind of cutoff. Queen 5 suited I think is going to be fine to be bringing it in for an open. The king and the jack and the big blind, again, another situation. There's a pretty strong chance that we're going to be playing this hand. We just need to see how the action unfolds before us, of course. So Dolph has gone for the min raise. We are going to 3-bet this raise. And we're going to be opening the queen and the jack from... We're under the gun in this game, but because one of the players of the table isn't there, we're essentially treating this as a mid-position range, and we can open queen jack from mid-position. Flop top pair, which is perfectly reasonable, and we take it down with the king and the jack offsuit over in the top right table, which we are not upset about. So this is going to be our last hand of the session for the video. The queen jack, we're going to have a bet, see if we can win a pot. We're going to bet this again. So if he has a hand like 9-10, we want to make sure that we charge. If he has a hand like 10-jack, we want to make sure we charge. And if he has a better jack than us, we're going to be checking rivers anyway, so it doesn't make a huge difference. Alright guys, that has been me. Thank you very much for watching. We will be back again for part 4 very soon. Take care.